talking about is basically just a simple way of training facilitators. He's just showing you some of the components that you can use for facilitators. But one of my favorite things to do, and we're just not going to do it today because of time, is actually, I love to break people up. I get a table full of actors, okay? And I ask them to exaggerate different types of people that you might have in your small group. So up here, all right, you have the second guy over, okay? What do you think he's doing? No, he's the side conversationalist, okay? So he's talking to the person next to him, right? Did you ever have that in a group? You know? And it's really difficult when, you know, you're trying to, the whole table's talking or the whole group is talking and somebody's talking to the person on the side. All right, so the side conversationalist is a tough person in the group. The next one, I think, therefore I am. What kind of a personality is that? Yeah, philosopher. He's coming out of his head, isn't he? But not about sharing from the heart. Okay, so he could be like a little bit argumentative. Thomas Aquinas says, you know, or something like that. Okay, and the next guy over here, who's holding people hostage, who is he? The dominator, the monopolizer, right? So, did you ever have a monopolizer in the group? Okay. So, one of the great things about working in a small group is you have to keep a sense of humor, all right? So, if somebody's dominating a group like that, I might say, wow, Dave, you have a lot to say on that subject. That's really great. What else does anyone else have to say? So you can just quickly shift it off. So you don't need a huge amount of group dynamic work to learn how to do this, but you just need to know how to pass it off to somebody else. So now that lady down the bottom, who's she? That's going to be a tough one. No, she's not complaining. The church lady. The socializer, right? She's telling a story. Every time you tell a story, she's going to say, that happened to me, and you know, my dog died, and or you know, she'll go on and on about
or one up your story.
Yeah, one up your story. Now, in this case, she doesn't really mean it, but in other cases, somebody might want to up your story. So, okay, how about the guy there jumping across the table?
What does he say?
What's that say?
He says, that can't be true.
Oh yeah, the challenger. Yeah.
The challenger, right? Or a person who is always saying, you know, what are you talking about? So when you guys were talking before about having like different philosophies in a group, you can have some of that sometimes. So that's where you either might have to say, okay, whoa, let's calm down. Let's take a breath here. Are we focused on what we're supposed to be focusing on, or have we drifted? You know, so with my group, I have a wonderful group of people. But they are like herding cats. They're all side conversationalists. Okay, they're my adult faith formation team. They're all side conversationalists. They're all storytellers. Okay, they're all, you know, monopolizers. They are so funny. I have to always stop and go, okay, hang on. Where are we? And they go, oh yeah, okay, and just pull them back together again. So it's fun. I mean, we laugh. We have a great time. But they have to be reminded. Now you got a guy under the table there. Who's that person?
The shy one.
The shy one, okay? Somebody who doesn't want to talk in a group, is nervous about it, doesn't think he or she knows enough, whatever. I have to tell you, I'm an introvert, and my first time I had to be in a small group, I thought I was going to die. Because I felt like I was walking to my death, okay? Because I figured somebody's going to ask me a question and I'm not going to know the answer. So, a lot of times with a shy person, you want to help them participate in the group, at least so their voice can be heard, have them do the reading, have them do something else. I never call on anybody and say, what do you think? Okay, I just don't. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. But I will engage them in a different way in the context of the group. And finally, up there, the guy with the sweat coming out of his head, that's a facilitator trying to control the whole. So when you do facilitator training, it's a riot to do like a fishbowl thing, you know, and have all the actors really exaggerate the role. But it's just fun, and people get the hints and so forth. So with my group, I have to show them these pictures to remind them of who they might be in the group, but we just laugh. But it's important to always set like the ground rules, if you will, you know, ahead of time. So usually a lot of the materials that you buy will have some ground rules in them. So that's just like a fun thing to do with that. But this is really serious, and I want you to think very seriously about some of the groups that you might be a part of, or some of the groups in your parish. So basically I say there's 4 types of groups, all right? So this first one is the inward focus group, all right? It's a group that can be together for too long. They don't allow other people in. Do you see that? Does anybody have one of those figures? You know, it's called a circle of friends. You do?
5 of them.
Do you like them? Okay, I would take them out to the parking lot and smash them. All right? Why? Why am I saying it, Nancy? You have 5 of them, Nancy?
Why 5 for my people in the diocese?
Why do I say smash it? Because they're closed. It's a closed group. I understand the concept and all that, and you have a candle in the middle, we're all united in Christ. I know all that. However, a lot of groups, okay, are like that. So think in your parish, not just the small communities, I'm not talking, it could be any ministry groups in your parish that are actually inward focus groups. So an inward focus group is, you know, they have an inner life, right? But look at this circle. Remember the circle we put up with the 6 elements?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of the right-hand side. They might be prayer, they might have support, okay, they'll have a lot of reflection. But they're missing the left side of the circle, all right? And it's important to think about that. So we say they have a lot of relationship, but this group doesn't have mission. And I can tell you just when you look at parish groups, how many people who are younger don't join groups because they think they're closed groups. And I mean ministries, I'm not just talking about small Christian communities, all right? And that's something we don't realize that could happen. I was working with a parish once, and they did what I call the parish whine. Whine, whine, whine. They're not joining, nobody's participating, the same people are doing the same things all the time, you know? So we did a whole process about what do you need in your ministry, what would you like to do, what's your, you know, dreams, etc. And we made a plan. And the plan was that I would come back 6 months later and find out how they're working on the plan. And the group that whined the loudest did not do any recruitment or any change because they were this group. They didn't want to change. And so it's very important that we take a look at who we are as a group. So that's the first group. Here's the second group, the impoverished group. Now this group is interesting because, you know, they're not really sure why they're existing. They might not necessarily know what their mission is as a group. Now, even though they might have a name in terms of a ministry, they still might be this group because they don't really know where they're going. There's no planning, there's no futuring, there's no how do we recruit people, how do we train people, how do we form people, they're just kind of lost. So when you look at a group like that, we say they have no mission and no relationship because those essential elements are not part of their group. Okay? Are you clicking in your head the groups in your parish that might be like that? All right, another group, outward focus group. Now here's the opposite. So this particular group, all the projects are dominant, but they don't have an inner life. So they're missing the whole right-hand side of the circle, but they're good at the left-hand side of the circle, right? And so, you know, they could be your social ministry groups, but, you know, they don't want to pray or they don't want to really reflect, but they're out there, you know, doing all kinds of things. So the balance is really key. So we say they have a lot of mission, but no relationship. Okay, so just think about some of those groups in your parish as well. So what we're really going for is the mission focus group. where every part of the circle they're paying attention to. All right? And that's what you're really trying to do. Now, in terms of your, let's just say this for a second, in terms of your ministry groups, every single group in your parish has one of those 6 elements as a mainstay. All right? They have it as their key thing. So if I said to you, bereavement group, which is their main element? Support. Support, excellent. If I said to you, parish pastoral council, mission, excellent, okay? If I said to you, Eucharistic ministers, could be mission or participation, right? Okay. If I said to you, youth ministry group,
Support.
could be support, right? Could be participation, right? Getting the youth involved. If I say to you prayer group, okay. If I say to you small Christian community, all of them, but what's your particular 3, really, right? I mean, they're all of them, but you know, you could say that they're learning and reflection as well as the rest, right? When surveys are done about what's the most important thing for people in a small Christian community, though, it comes out as support. Okay? So anyway, you see what I'm saying? So every group in your parish could fit in something like this. But that doesn't excuse them from using the rest of the circle. All right? So anyway, there's a couple of other things you could do with facilitators too, and so forth. But what I do is, we were using this particular resource for Lent. It's called Open Our Hearts, a Small Group Guide for an Active Lent. So when I'm training the facilitators now, I'm going to train them on how to use the book. So that's your practical part as well. So with the practical part, whatever material you're using, you have to go through what the components are in the material. All right, so these happen to be the components of that particular book. So you have to go through that with them. And then if you're doing an evaluation, as Bob said, I tried to do a weekly evaluation with my facilitators. They were like, so that didn't work. So I usually, what I really have to do for them, or with them, is set up a SurveyMonkey one. That would be the easiest, but I usually send them something online with 1 or 2 questions, and I have them, with the group, fill it out. Okay, I don't want them to fill it out, I want the group to fill it out. All right? So whatever. And then I just want to show you this. You can evaluate group growth. Okay, how the groups develop. And one of the things that I use, this is a very simple one. I take those essential elements and I have the group fill it out. We do and we need to do. All right? And so they really talk about it. Now, I like to have every single ministry in the parish do something like this. So when I'm called on to do work with parish ministries, I usually have a thing that I set up and use it as a handout for that, because it helps them see what they're paying attention to in terms of the small group and maybe what they need to do a little bit more of. Yes?
Sister, how often do you do that?
With the groups? Probably once a year with my small groups. But if I'm working with ministries, I like to have them do it twice a year. Okay? So usually I'm called upon to do it in other parishes, you know, so I'll do a workshop just on this. We do have another book, I'm thinking of rewriting it, we were talking about it yesterday, on evaluating a small group so that you move from seasonal group to community. In other words, it's a developmental process of how you get from one to the other, but I have to pull it out, and who has time right now? But anyway, something simple like this will really help people to do it. But it's precluded by really doing, you know, you really have to be able to explain wherever it went to. Bob had it up. That. So to me, those are the most essential elements that we're working with, and people have to know that that's what you're going for, and then you can do the we do, we need to do thing. I mean, you can even expand that a little bit more by saying, when will we do it, who will we do it, that's pastoral planning, But for now, especially in a small group, that works. Okay, yes?
Doesn't the nature of a small faith community tend to be inward if you're sharing within your group, you're supporting one another? What are examples of the participation and mission that you would say?
Okay, well, it's what Diane's been talking about and what Bob is talking about. So, for example, I remember way back to my first small group, okay, and I had been working in a parish in Newark, which is inner city Newark, and a family was burned out of their building. And so we banded together, we took care of that family, we got stuff, we got the rest of the parish to do some things. That's an outward reach. You could be doing some work on, if there's a particular political thing coming up, a bill or something, you could work on that. Our people do a lot with, we have multiple parishes around us that we work with. So they go to the soup kitchen to work. We have a monthly food collection. We try to fill up pantries in our area. So a lot of things like that. They can do individual works, okay, or they can do group works. The key thing is that the next session, you talk about what did you do as a result of what we did last week. So, for example, in Lent, if you use these booklets, for example, most of it, there's a couple of things in there. Let me go back to those. Okay, it's this one. You see, in a good book, a good material is going to be broad in terms of what it's going to do. So this one, if you look at this, the usual stuff, setting the environment, prayer, connecting with life, listening to the Word, this is all typical, appreciating the Word, reflecting on my life. Okay. Next element is reflecting on my home. What's my home life like? What are we doing in the home? And we tried to make that really generic so that people who have little kids could use it, or people who have mixed intergenerational families could use it. All right? So that's a step out of the group, all right, to take a look at that. But the next one is reflecting on my parish. What are the things that I can contribute to the parish that we need to do in the parish? In other words, it's taking you another step out. The third one is reflecting on my world, or affecting my world. So in affecting my world, in that particular book, there's all kinds of things listed, whether they're global organizations, whether they're local organizations, or something that we can do together. So you're being asked in that particular resource to do something personal to reach out to somebody, and to do something as a group. So for example, my group did a whole thing for Heifer International, whatever. So that's what you're trying to get people to do. In our parish, we also have something that's very remarkable, and it's called Stewardship Day. And on Stewardship Day, about 1,000 people participate, and they all do projects in and around the diocese, the parish or the diocese. And so it's a regular part of our parish life to help people move out. So when you're in the group, yes, you are focusing on how am I hearing God in my life, but what do we do with this? Okay, so hence, observe, judge, and act. What needs to be done? Okay, does that help a little bit? But you're right, because groups can stay at the inward focused group. That's why I'm saying take that round thing out and smash it, because you don't want to be like that.
As a facilitator, somebody has to organize those group activities, or
No, in this particular book, as the facilitator of my group, I'll say, okay, here's a whole bunch of things. Is there anything here that we feel we could want to work at? Or here's what the stewardship committee's going to do, and how do we want to be involved in that? Yeah. So that's how I would say something like that. All right? Sister Nancy wants to say something. She's bugging me here.
About, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago, there was this big flood in Arkadelphia. And in one of our small groups in one of our parish, they were just praying, and somebody in the group said, maybe we can help those people in Arkadelphia. And now, we're in Pennsylvania, and so the guy goes, well, listen, I have a truck. Well, I can do this. The next day they went to say, Father, can we set up a bank account? They canvassed the whole diocese. There was an announcement that they're going to take blankets from Pennsylvania. So my point is just, it grew out of the prayer of the small group. Normally the bishop would say, we're going to help Arkadelphia, announce it in parishes, and filter down. This came from the small group, through the parish, up to the diocese. And I always say, if you're authentically praying, God is going to call you beyond yourself. That somehow you're going to be moved. And in your small group, God will call, maybe individually, or as a group. So that was just an example that just came from their prayer. They organized the whole thing.
So that's key, the small group comes up with it, the facilitator tries to keep it in focus, but then also to share what you've done. I think that's really key, so thank you, that's a beautiful thing. And there's a couple of others. When Hurricane Katrina happened, our small groups were sending not boatloads, but truckloads of stuff down to New Orleans. So it depends on how you're doing it. And some of your outreach might be to people in nursing homes, or people who are sick in the parish. It doesn't always have to be global. Yes, Laura?
My biggest heartbreak sort of triggers off of that. The two groups, Christ Renews Parish and RCIA, and they form such incredible intentional communities. And then a few may continue, but we lose it. And how? I mean, we try, form them into a small Christian community. It's natural, and it doesn't happen. Any suggestions?
Well, we have an RCIA, we have a 10 o'clock RCIA that continues, and they just stay. I mean, it becomes a small Christian community, but then people who are maybe coming into the church or into that particular group, we have the catechumens in another group. But that's always a hard thing. Sometimes they leave for a little while, then they come back. But we try to integrate them. What I think Diane was saying before was really key, where you have a group that actually sponsors a catechumen is really helpful, because then they become part of that group. They get to know them. But sometimes people are really busy and they can't do it, or their kids or whatever. But keep inviting.
We make a conscious effort to try and do this in our diocese, and one of the ways is we form the groups before they finish the RCIA. We help them, before they get done with the RCIA, we try to get them bonded, or we associate them with another group in their parish. So we try to do the bonding before they finish, rather than saying, do you want to do it after they finish?
Okay. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's different ways to do it, and I guess the question is ask people what would you like to do. But like I said, our 10 o'clock RCIA on Sundays just continues. So a lot of pictures of people that I have up there are actually in that particular group. They just keep staying. So, and plus some of them are even in another group for a seasonal group. So they do two groups, whatever. All right, so do you get the concept of training the facilitators? It's not really hard. You don't have to do PhD work in group dynamics, but check in with your facilitators all the time. So I'm going to turn this back over to Bob.